another edition of Live with Sonar. I'm Kyle Taylor. It's a great day to be here. This is my first time hosting the show, so I'm glad to be here. I have my co-host here, Mike Vincent.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Hey,
welcome.
It's great to be here, man.
Yeah.
Last time I was on, it was a blast.
Right.
And might I say, you're doing a hell of a great job as a host.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It just took 10 seconds to really show the work.
10 seconds and you've got it, bro.
That's exactly. Well, tell me a little bit about life of the dude these days. You had what, 30 different sections on FreightWaves with FreightWaves Live at home?
It felt like it. Yeah. 27 hours of live, I think we were, something like that, over 3 days. But FreightWaves Live at home was amazing.
Yeah, I had a
Was it awesome?
Time. Yeah, no, I had a great little setup. I had my entire, almost like it was like a cockpit in my apartment where I brought up my big screen TV. It's a 70-inch, so I had my normal TV curved screen, and then I had my TV right next to me that was showing me.
So
live.
how many screens do you use on a normal daily basis? Because this was kind of a thread that was going back and forth during the live event. You know, because you could interact with anybody.
Right.
So there was kind of a thing where everybody's like, well, I've got 2 screens. Well, I've got 3. I threw out there, well, I got 5. And I thought, and everybody's like, holy cow. And then George Abernathy, our president.
Right.
I got 9.
Yeah.
Like,
George has like his normal, I don't even know what his normal setup is, but then he's got like an iPad behind him. He's got 3 other iPads around him. I'm sure he's got one in every bathroom of the house. Just didn't want to miss anything that happened on FreightWaves Live at home. But I usually so I have 2. So I have the large curved screen. Yeah. So I usually split that in half. Yeah. And then I will have my laptop. But this time I brought over my TV.
Nice.
So it made it 3.
Nice. So you could get everything done, right?
No, exactly.
I thought it was a killer event.
No, it was. I mean, you talk about it. When I first heard of FreightWaves was Transparency 18. So,
is that right?
Yeah, that was kind of how I was like, oh, this is intense. It was already, we were kind of progressing to that online platform. Everyone, doesn't matter if you're attending the conference or not, you can join because we recorded it, we repurposed it, we put the...
Oh, we live streamed?
Yeah, we live streamed as well. But from where we came then to where we are now, I mean, you've really been through it all.
I have been through it all. Yeah, I've been here since it was all vaporware.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Even before Sonar. So, I mean.
Yeah. Well before Sonar. Before Sonar was, I mean, it was really gathering data for the freight futures is what we were doing. And then Sonar kind of evolved out of a couple different things that were being thought through. So, but yeah, I've been there. But, you know, you talk about the progression of events or conferences, right? And really, as far as this industry is, Craig's vision, Craig Fuller, our CEO and founder, his vision from the very first one changed it. Right. I mean, that very first one with the rapid fire demos and everything, it changed everything. And with the demo lounge that we had set up that you had to go through, it wasn't a separate exhibit hall and so on. It really kind of changed everything right there. And then he's just one-upped it every time. Yeah. People are trying to catch up, but he keeps one-upping it. It's going to be really cool to see what the next event is, because this one was killer.
Right.
It was much better than I thought it was going to be. And the reaction was unbelievable. Where else are you going to sit? You can't go to a live conference, right? Sit in the main hall, listen to a keynote speaker, and be interacting and knowing how everybody in the crowd is reacting and thinking.
Yeah, not only from a company perspective of like networking and getting people to know your brand and be able to ask questions, but I've been through probably about 20 conferences in my lifetime over my career, and that part of fear that even I have sitting in a session and then they have the Q&A after, they always ask, you know, they bring the microphones around, who's got a question, and you know, I'm always kind of sitting there with my arms crossed that have a slight segment of fear. This is something that you don't have that. I can just throw my question on there in a specific Slack channel. I can just Slack someone specifically.
You can go right to specific people. You're exactly right. Yeah. So it's beautiful, and you don't have to. And with the demo companies, even with the companies that demo, you want to interact. You don't have to kind of walk by and they're busy with 5 people and there's 3 people waiting to talk to them. You just throw it out there, and they get to it. They come back. Right. You're totally interconnected, and it's just amazing. I really thought it was very, very cool.
It was very interesting how, I mean, FreightWaves has been a company where pivot is like our middle name almost. Like we have to be, in order for us to be successful, we got to be able to just go with the flow and change with how things progress. And so from us going from a live event to now it's going to be virtual and still bring the same level of intensity, still bring the same maturity of content that we have was something that just to be a part of it was awesome.
And it will just get better. It will just get better. And as I'm thinking from an attendee's perspective, you know, which is what we try and do, obviously, right? Because you got to think of the customer or the end user and what do they want, what do they need to provide what they need. But when you look at it, when you think about a live conference like we did in Atlanta and Chicago, in Dallas or Grapevine, et cetera, you have specific people from the companies that can come, for one, because they can get away, two, budgetary reasons, right? So here, those people that you really kind of as a company wanted to have come, but you couldn't because they were essentially need to stay behind or budgetary type of situations, whatever it happens to be, they all attended.
Yeah. Or having the
your whole company could attend this event, basically.
Right, and the idea that I'm going to miss out on a week's worth of work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, if I'm a one-man band, or maybe it's a smaller company that is, still pushing. I mean, I talk to brokerages all the time that are pushing $30–40 million in revenue, and it's 5 people.
Right.
And so you pull out one of those legs, and it's like, well, the whole
20% of your workforce is gone.
Exactly. So it's like we can't afford to just miss someone, or you're not really that engaged because when you're there, you're working. There's been countless times where I'm over on the sofas because I'm on my computer taking a conference call real quick.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you miss content because you go, this is all recorded. You can go back and look at it. You can interact with everything that was there. It's beautifully done. And yes, I think it changes everything moving forward.
Right.
Just like it does with travel, with air travel and business travel. It changes everything.
Those rates are very enticing right now. I know we're supposed to be, masked up, quarantined. I'm a millennial here, and so I see like a $10 trip come in from Frontier, and I'm chomping at the bit a little bit to kind of jump on these flights. But speaking of kind of compressed rates, what we're gonna kind of go through today is a little bit of how this progression of volumes that are slowly increasing. You heard the Sultan of Sonar. You heard the Great Oz, our CEO talk and battle it out. You saw George Abernathy blowing the whistle in between and talking about our rates going to be going, or our volumes going to be going up. Are we going to hit that?
Yeah.
Was it 9,300?
It was supposed to hit 9,300 before May 15th. Was the original. Gentleman's bet. They really don't bet anything. They bet pride or bragging rights, right? It's a lot like college football. It's not the winning or losing. It's the we beat you. That's important.
No sports right now, so it's almost becomes even better.
Absolutely. So it was 9,300 by the 15th. It was supposed to hit, which it did.
But then continue.
But then they altered it because everybody, I think, agrees that yes, things are, and they're obviously progressing in the right direction. Right. But it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Right.
It's going to be up and down and so on and so forth, a series of W's or a series of small V's, if you want to, a W type, kind of in a swoosh kind of upward motion. Hopefully that continues, but there's going to be bumps. And, it's not going to be smooth.
Right.
It's not going to be a rocket ship up.
Right.
So.
No, that's spot on. And if we start to, one of the first charts we want to bring up today is going to be looking at volumes. Since we're talking about our volume's going to hit 9,300. Not only did it hit it, but we surpassed it.
It blew past it to 95.8, or almost 96.
Yeah, 95.80 is where we're at right now. So now we're just holding on to, is this going to continue to drive up or at least maintain throughout the end of the month? And so what we're comparing here is the blue is telling you what today is. This is what this year, from the start of this year, you saw that big spike up back at the end of March into April of the COVID rush to buy eggs and toilet paper. And then we saw the drop down into restaurants closing down, non-essential businesses having to shut down. And what those kinds of
manufacturing shutting down, all that type of stuff.
And to where we are now is, positive, might I add. I mean, we are coming off of a very suppressed rate economy now for trucking. You see the articles and companies going up to Capitol Hill to say that we need to start putting in a little bit of regulation around how low can trucking rates go.
Yeah, there is a bit about that. I don't know if we want to get into the regulatory discussion right now.
I'm not one to be talking about that.
We could spend the next 10 with Sonar episodes talking about that and discussing it and bringing on people with varying opinions on that.
Right.
The smart money seems to be, we really don't need that. What we need is for people to use their heads, and maybe those underperformers to, natural selection type of thing. But I mean, volumes are definitely going up, right? And industry is coming back online. Right. It is. But still, there's a lot of capacity out there relative to the volume, obviously. And that's what we're looking at, is supply and demand. The demand for the capacity is certainly increasing, and the capacity is there. Now, the rates are really low. Excuse me. Obviously, they're still really low. OTRI has increased, but it's nowhere near anywhere that's going to put any dramatic upward pressure on rates. Certain markets, it's fragmenting, and that's why you need the daily. You definitely need up-to-date daily data on the different markets in the various modes, the reefer and dry van and flatbed, and even rail and international air and maritime, to know where things are going, what's going on, and all the macroeconomic data. There's so many different things you need to consume and be on top of right now to navigate through this, right? So it is up. But now you're starting to see what Greg Miller was talking about, our senior editor maritime for FreightWaves and on American Shipper a couple weeks back on freight forecasting, is the cliff, right? Because we just got the ISM new orders and new production came out, and then the LMI just came out today, which I've been going through. I haven't been completely through it yet, but that came out today. But the ISM information is showing, new orders dropped dramatically in April, which is not a shock to anybody, really. Backlog of orders also dropped as well. Yet shipments into manufacturing, and manufacturing is starting to increase, which is, or ramp up. Right. And the threat is there. The promise that they're ramping up is there. So if demand is there and it does grow, we're going to see the volumes keep going up. But the international supply chain is emptying. And you've got, Maersk, 140 additional blank sailings through June. So they're not considering capacity or demand for their capacity coming back anytime soon.
Right. And
so that's something that is kind of a stall factor that you see maybe coming.
Right.
So is it going to go up? Yes, but we're going to have these little stalls and starts and stutters type of things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that we're just going to have a huge increase in volumes, because when you look at things like warehousing and the availability of space, and you see that warehouses are continuing to be oversupplied, so there's a lot of freight being stored right now.
There is a lot of these imports that came in through that flux. We were talking about before. Even at the ports, concern for space at the ports because no one's coming to pick up these containers. Right. And then when they do, they're going into warehouses.
Exactly. And if we go down to our screen here, what we'll actually be looking at is the imports, and we'll see that big spike. And so what we're seeing here in blue is the United States customs import shipments, and then in green we see the customs coming from China to the United States. And
they're specifically maritime, though.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're looking at containers coming into the ports, and so this is exactly what you're talking about. When we saw China go back in line or go back online, and we saw a big increase because we had all these containers that were ready to go, that were just halted.
Yeah.
And so because there was no freight being moved out, there's a and so we see this where all that freight came in. Yeah. Now it's being stored.
It is.
And it's not moving, though. Or is it moving?
Well, it is moving. Yeah. Well, a lot of it is moving. It's the interesting part is because, you're talking about volumes going up on your first slide there, and you were, and they're nearing last year. But if you remember last year, what was it, 2019 was last year?
Yeah.
What year?
How long we been in quarantine? I don't know, 5 years?
I'm not sure what day it is. They just wake me up and push me. We had that strange, that anomalous dip.
Yeah.
Right about now, last year, that you normally don't see right before the Memorial Day, and so it just and then went back up that we didn't see before. And that's why we're going to cross in last year's volumes. It's not because it's a normal trend, because if you look at 2018, 17, et cetera, there's a trend up right now, and there was that anomalous that die off right there in about this time last year. So we're going to cross that type of stuff. But in the volumes that you're looking at, it's interesting because you saw long haul start to take off with that surge of imports.
Right. Yeah.
As it's moving to the DC areas. But now we're starting to see all the other lengths of haul are starting to get in on the action.
Correct.
Right? The tweeners started to move up, the locals started to move up. All the lengths of hauls are starting to creep up at varying paces.
Yeah, and could that be because of the, going on the rail, these containers going into the ports and then getting into Chicagoland areas, going to those lower lengths of hauls?
It is, and I think it's stuff coming out of the DCs to start getting ready for manufacturing, getting ready for things to start up.
Right.
I mean, there's definite activity out there.
Yeah.
Right? How well we recover from COVID.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, you got
the actual cause.
Now.
Yeah. How does that fare for the public health and sentiment will definitely drive or cause a stall.
Right.
Because you're going to start up manufacturing, but if there's no demand, they're not going to start it up. I mean, right now, they're worried about cash as much as they possibly can.
So that consumer sentiment piece, I mean, we bring up multiple data sets. Something you've always preached is you can't look at one thing. It's always, you got to look at multiple different aspects of the freight economy.
You absolutely do, because we were looking at this spike in imports, right? And everybody, and not everybody, but certain people, oh, look, the imports are up, so things are on. But you got to consider the demand side. Where's the demand side? And at the same time you're looking at that, you look at the ISM numbers, and new orders and things are in the toilet.
Right.
They're just not happening. So these were all, and the back orders were really high. So that's what it was, is back orders that were 6 weeks ago that were coming through. And so now now it's starting to dip, and new orders dropped, backlog orders dropped, new orders dropped faster than backlog orders.
Yep.
And the LMI that I saw, and I don't know the specifics because I said it just came out today, I was going through it. Those, the LMI indices for March were really high, because that's measuring the movement of actual goods. And obviously we had that huge surge. Right? So capacity was tight, prices, there was upward pressure on prices. All that stuff has dropped dramatically for April, as you would expect, because we saw it. We saw the drop in volumes and OTRI and everything else. So we'll see how that goes next month.
Right. No, exactly.
Right?
Makes it really tricky to, how do you start pricing? We started saying that prices hit their floor, per se, where they're slightly coming back up.
Yeah.
And then we're also seeing it continue based off our forecast on our predictive rating tool. We're seeing in some markets rates still continue to go up, but then come back down towards summer. Now, what would you factor in when you're quoting for a week out? Or if you are in these...
For a week out right now.
Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got to look at the trends on there. You've got to look at the inbound, you got to look at the outbound, and specifically what mode you're in as well.
Right.
Right? So if you're looking at those things, you can definitely trend out a day or two or even a week as to what is going on if you're looking at these things. When we're looking at imports and the LMI and the ISM, the PMI index, Purchasing Managers Index, and the Logistics Manager Index, and the various different verticals within those, new goods, commercial, non-manufacturing, non-defense capital goods, and all that other kind of stuff that's in there, you're starting to talk. You're getting longer term as to which way the economy is going right now, right? And we're seeing those quick changes in it month over month because of what is happening here. It's an anomalous year, there's no doubt about it, and I hope we don't go through another 2020. But on a weekly and daily basis, you can look at the trends that are happening in those specific markets and on those specific lanes and see where demand is growing, right? And we still do have somewhat of normal seasonality, like produce season, right? It's fairly, that's going to happen. And there's definitely the demand out there.
Yeah, it really held up the reefer market being the seasonality. So that was definitely an aspect where you had to look at market to market. It wasn't just a blanket, rates are down or volumes are up. You had to really look at what markets do I deal with.
And I guess a very roundabout way of getting to it is, dealing with a lot of enterprise accounts and stuff, and I know you have as well. You deal with the analytics side of it and that type of thing. You run across some that at times they look exclusively at the data, whether they're looking at a vast array of data sets like we preach here. You got to be looking at all these different things. Even if you're not in international trade, it will definitely affect specific markets and the capacity levels and your rates and your price and your ability to service your customers, no doubt. But they don't want that. One requested that there be no human sentiment within the data structure or within the forecast whatsoever. And I think that's just it's a terrible mistake, especially right now.
Right.
If you were just looking at imports and you didn't have the insights from somebody like a Greg Miller on what is actually happening with those imports, or Anthony Smith, our lead economist, to break down what these things actually mean and go, not so fast, look at these other data sets and what those mean, that human sentiment, and know what's going on, you're going to be lost. And even on a weekly basis, that constant news feed of what is going on will help you decipher, is this volume right now, this uptick or this shrink or this tightening of capacity, a strong trend or a weak trend? Right? Because it's fragmented. Things are starting up, they're not starting up. If you're not in tune with which industries are starting up and which ones are hurting, like auto manufacturing. You're looking at auto manufacturing right now and everybody's like, ooh, auto manufacturing is coming back online and it's going to increase volumes and everything's going to be great, right?
Yeah, next week is what we're hearing.
But you've got Hertz that's on the brink of possible bankruptcy type of stuff, right? And that's 30% of the auto manufacturing goes into rental cars.
Yeah.
So you gotta be
in consumer sentiment. Are people going out and buying cars? You know, are we confident enough? We have unemployment rates that are all-time high right now. The best year for unemployment and the worst year for unemployment. I mean, it's such an interesting time to be here, and that's where you really have to look at those. And when you start talking about those enterprise style of companies, even if you're not an enterprise style of company, you still have to understand what could affect my capacity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And because there's so many different factors that can. I mean, it could be the retail sector. Could be Walmart just unloading a new product that can. I mean, I've been around it. I had coworkers of mine who had Walmart accounts, and there were 1,500 truckloads this week that they're moving. You don't think that's going to suck out capacity in that market?
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does.
And so when people are talking about, okay, well, the contract market doesn't affect my spot market business, that's where we kind of get blue in the face a little bit. My head's about to explode because those factors
absolutely drives it.
You know, really pulls that capacity out.
Yeah, it absolutely drives it. It absolutely drives it. And even speaking with like a Lance Healy, founder, CEO at Banyan Technologies, LTL.
Right.
He's heavily involved with FreightWaves because LTL and truckload are severely interrelated.
Yeah,
you can see what's going on both of them.
You know, because how did you say it? They're the last ones to change and the first ones to get affected.
Yeah, you can tell what's going on in the market. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can tell what's going on in truckload with LTL, and you can predict what's going to go on with LTL through truckload as well.
Because of that line haul.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, you look at YRC, and we've written a couple articles that are saying good and bad. We see good reports come out, bad reports come out. But to think about it, they don't always use their own assets to do the line haul for that hub and spoke type of network.
Well, like YRC does.
They do? Okay.
Now, in my former job, we didn't. We outsourced that stuff. We outsourced the line haul in between facilities, and we just used assets for local. Yeah. But I mean, the different markets and how you're going to look at what's going on in each day to day, and looking at those markets and deciphering what's going on, we've got a new tool that'll help you.
Yeah.
Don't we?
Yeah, I think we got something that was just released last week. I don't know what is it? Sonar 6.0, if we can get a big 6 over here to throw it right on the end of with Sonar here. But yeah, if you actually pan over to my screen here, we can dive in a little bit because
let's look at that.
You know, one thing that because
this is cool. I've been waiting for this for a while. This is very cool.
Being a part of a SaaS company, I've been in SaaS before, FreightWaves, and it's all about the user experience. And if you didn't have something that was able to make it easy for someone to ingest the information, you weren't going to have people really accept the product. I mean, change management's already hard enough in an organization if you're even speaking from like a TMS transition.
Yeah.
Or adding a third-party vendor of some sort into your network. And so what we went out to try to do is say, well, how can we get this in the frontline hands so that we can just throw in an OD pair and be able to make a decision quickly without having to, put analyst at the end of my title.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the plug and play, quick, tactical. This is what's going on.
Right, and so what we see here is LA to Dallas, a good lane. A lot of people understand this lane and will understand the how it flips from time to time.
Yeah.
And so having an understanding of when that flip may happen or how is pricing going to change, because I've talked to too many logistics providers to say that, okay, I made a decision on a quote this week and it's really screwing me because once they get that load next week.
Yeah.
Like I quoted this last week.
Yeah.
Well, the market's completely changed.
Yeah, it's changed already.
So how do I can use the DAT or truck stop or 123 load board or whatever you're using to price, and then I can use my, hey Vincent, what do you think on this lane? You've ran this lane before, my historical data. And then if I'm, maybe I am a one-man band, but calling other companies that I know or just calling trucks and saying, hey, what would you do this for? And so that's really all you had to do, but that's a time crunch. And so we went into this and said, we got a lot of smart guys locked in a room back there. No, they're at home. I swear they're quarantined in place. But we have a lot of smart data scientists here at FreightWaves, and we decided that it would be a great idea. It just goes back to the CEO here, Craig Fuller, being able to just see this image. We're going to take a freight nerd and a data nerd and really just put them together, Zach Strickland's you of the world, to say, okay, this is what we need in the market. This is what we lack. This is what I wish I had. And let's collaborate.
And then to be able to interpret that data and bring about the use case of it.
Right.
Right? And so this is really the culmination, well, thus far. They'll be new.
Only the beginning.
7.0 will be coming.
Oh, it's coming a lot faster than I thought. Next thing you know, Sonar is going to be on the screens of every brokerage in the world.
Yeah. So what is this screen? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so this is lane signal. This is our new 6.0 tool that is allowing you to put this into the hands of your frontline brokers without having to worry about them going to chart. And so we put in an OD pair up here at the top, over 750,000 different OD pairs in the van market.
Yeah.
And then from there we dissect what data do you need to see. This is the volumes, outbound volumes for the origin, inbound volumes for the destination. Looking at the hauls, so we're seeing the Dallas haul. So this is a LA to Dallas. So what's the haul look like for Dallas? What's the haul look like for LA?
And that's their outbound inbound ratio, right? So an up haul means there's more outbound than inbound in that market.
Correct.
Right.
And then getting into tender rejections. One of the best proxies for spot market pricing is tender rejection rates.
Yeah.
Are carriers accepting rates right now? And so in a perfect market, we talk about surplus and capacity. It's there is a extreme surplus of capacity right now. So, but we are seeing a slight increase in tender rejections. And so we give those quick indicators there on the bottom left. And then, okay, are they going up or down?
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
That's all you need to know.
I'm making 100 calls a day. I need to know whether or not to quote. I can't take 15 minutes to get this quote out. That could be me putting money in my pocket or me not. And
it's interesting because you got both ends, right? You got the lane signal for both sides, for the origin and the destination.
Right.
So, and that's important whether you're the provider of the capacity,
right,
or you're a shipper or a broker purchasing that capacity, right? For both ends to know you're taking them from this type of a market to that type of a market. Is it a desirable lane for that carrier, or isn't it a desirable lane for that?
Right. The selling doesn't stop at the customer.
Right.
You have to negotiate. You have to. Why would a carrier want to go into that market?
Right.
And you need to understand that, because I've done it before. Hey, where do you want to go? I see the post on the load board.
Yeah.
I'm here. I want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You call him. You tell him where you have a load. And he's like, I don't want to go there.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like, what do you do? But that will do it for us today.
Are we out of time already?
Yeah, we're out of time.
Holy mackerel.
It's already been that time.
Can we stretch it another half hour? This is great.
Right? Can I get another 30 minutes, please? No. We'll have to tune in next week for another edition of With Sonar. We'll be going through Sonar and the different applications of utilizing it for your business. If you would like to learn more about it, we have a QR code below where I can give you a demo. We can give any of the sales team will give you a demo. But look forward to that, and we'll talk to you next week.